Hello, welcome to my series about all Chopin's music. Today we will have fun with Chopin's Etude in G-flat major opus 10 number 5, so-called Black Keys Etude. Why black keys? Simply because the right hand of this etude is playing only exclusively all the time using only black keys. Why such an idea? Well, this is very interesting story. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but when Chopin was a teenager and he was growing up as a pianist, there was a rule in the pianistic world of professors, teachers and pianists that the pianist is not allowed using the thumb on black keys. It was forbidden. No, no, no. You don't use the thumb on the black keys. As we know, genius doesn't listen to any rules. And Chopin proved that he was a genius and he didn't want to even hear about this rule. First of all, he never had a piano teacher. His only piano teacher was a violin player. So he had no idea of the piano technique, but he had a great knowledge about music. So he showed Chopin music by Bach, by Mozart, and all the other great masters. But Chopin improved his piano technique, way of playing, intuitively. He only used his genius intuition. Everything he did. So for him, using the thumb on the black keys was a natural thing. When he found out later, maybe it was with Kalkbrenner, maybe it was with somebody else, somebody told him, but you must not use, it's not allowed to use the thumb. How can you? What are you thinking? You are young and you break the rules. You will never achieve anything as a piano player. Blah 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 blah. Well, Chopin probably smiled and he thought, okay, I will prove you something. And he composed this music and he asked the question to the world of piano playing. Now, you wise people, show me, play my etude. And don't use the thumb on the black keys. And play this without the thumb. It's impossible, absolutely impossible. Impossible. How intelligent, how wicked it is. But, my friends, of course, it's a joke, but also a truth. And the truth is that Chopin opens the door to new generations of piano players, to piano players who didn't follow any rules, who were following their intuition, who just played like everything was possible, nothing was not allowed. And this way of thinking pushed the level of piano playing in a different dimension. And I want all of us to be aware of that. And this etude is a witness of this. This is the tool by means of which Chopin achieved this goal. So, the difficulty of this etude is, of course, playing using only black keys. Right hand is using black keys. Left hand is using also white keys, simply because if Chopin decided to write a piece only on black keys, he would have really a problem, because we have only 5 different black keys, so it means we have a pentatonic scale. At Chopin's times, except of China, nobody used pentatonic scale. Or maybe some other countries you can tell me if you know, but I know very well about Chinese because I made my PhD about Chinese music. If you don't know it, it's there is a whole CD on Spotify or iTunes you can find with me performing pieces written for piano by a Chinese composer, Wang Chenzong. Probably I pronounce it wrong, but I don't speak Chinese. But anyway, you can find it if you write Wang that's his first name, and my name, you find this recording, and I strongly recommend to you. But if you know a little bit Chinese music is based on pentatonic mostly, not only but mostly pentatonic scale, which they used already 3,000-4,000 years ago, and it sounds exactly as if we are using only black keys. Yeah, now I'm just improvising. But maybe this is. They only had 5 strings and they only had 5 notes. Well, Chopin couldn't. So he did something much more, I would say, well, not interesting. I don't want to, of course, offend pentatonic music, but much more interesting. Well, no. Genius, just genius. He is using pentatonic scale in the right hand, but he is putting this pentatonic scale into the European, let's say, tonal system. So this is fantastic. It's really fantastic. I think it was a shock, and as you see, I'm very excited about this, because I think the world doesn't put enough emphasis of the genius of this very etude. It is really spectacular. But what is difficult in playing on the right, on the black keys? Well, black keys are more narrow than the white keys, of course, and they are more narrow, so it's much more easy to play another, like not to play this. And of course, if we use the flat fingers, maybe we can do it, but there is another problem. If we play this etude with flat fingers, it doesn't sound well, because flat fingers we can use for nocturnes, for beautiful singing melodies, but in this etude, when we want to achieve what Chopin writes, brillant, which means brilliant, you know, very bright articulation, we need to have this kind of fingers, so we have to use our fingertips. And now playing using black keys, only playing with fingertips, is really hard. But that's again a new technique. After all the 4 etudes, now we have a new technique. Chopin wants the pianist also to become free, to destroy all the rules. Forget about this. You have to play the thumb on the black keys every time, whenever it is suitable for you, whenever it's comfortable for you. Just forget the rule. This is the analysis of the difficulty of this etude. Of course, it's a very fast tempo, and now let's make an analysis of the music, because believe me, in this etude also we have a lot of shocking things. Really a lot. Well, I counted how many things are surprising and even shocking, and I counted at least more than 5. Well, we will count them together. The first shocking thing is, of course, that we play only using black keys. Then the second is how the phrases are constructed. I play for you now part A of this etude, and part A is constructed, let's say, in a good way, in a normal, natural way. We will have the first phrase, antecedent phrase, as we call it in English, and then we will have the second consequent phrase, which starts in the same way and finish in a little different way. And this will bring us to part B. But in this very first phrase, already we have a shock. Already in bar number 8. So at the end of the first phrase, Chopin is writing ritenuto. It didn't happen in any of the etudes that we analyzed before. Slowing down at the beginning of the piece and even playing piano pianissimo. This is the second shocking thing. The third is that in every bar we have different dynamic, which means loud and then silent. loud and silent. Everything is written by Chopin. We start by playing loud. Then immediately we have this. So this is exactly like, we can say that Chopin is trying to imitate this kind of moment when we have somebody speaking to us and again it's this is the beginning. We have somebody speaking and suddenly piano pianissimo. This is, believe me, extremely hard to play, and not all the pianists can really achieve this spectacular effect. But when I listen to this etude by others, I wait for this, because that's the idea. That's the beauty of this piece, of this music. This is exactly what we need to achieve. Funny moment. So we have to change the touch immediately, but we have to stay with the same articulation, the same tempo, the same character. Just playing soft. And after that we have crescendo. Then everything is repeated, and then we have crescendo, and then suddenly slowing down and piano pianissimo. So much in just such a little time. So many details. And then the consequent phrase. And then it opened the door to part B. Shocking? In my opinion, very much. Part B is also shocking, but it doesn't seem so at the beginning, because at the beginning we have rather natural way of constructing a very funny music, when we have one statement and then the answer, then and at the same statement and then another shock. This statement, I call it birds falling down, let's say, because this, well, it's just for us, for our analysis, so that we have some words describing this moment. This is for me like birds. And for this we have the answer going up. Listen. Answer. And again birds. And then should be another answer, and should be the end. No. Here we will have a shock. Chopin opens a new music. And what is another shock is that this is not a regular phrase, and we will have a long way with building up the first climax of the piece. The first, not the last, the first. So, another shocking thing. Part B is using a completely new material, motivic material. So it's unlike the previous etude that we analyzed yesterday, where Chopin is using all the time the same material. Here he is constantly presenting something new. And now let's listen to this second phrase, how it is unnaturally long. So it starts again from birds and answer and birds, and now suddenly the long and this is the first climax, which we are going to celebrate for a while. So, did you hear? It's very unnaturally long. It's this is a shock for our subconscious. We don't expect that, especially in Chopin's music. Very long way for the culmination. Okay, and then the culmination starts part C. Part C, which in my imagination is like a symphonic orchestra. Suddenly we have some kind of signals of the brass instruments, you know, this very, very, or maybe trumpets or something very powerful in the left hand. And then listen to this. And then suddenly we have horns, you know, this one of my favorite instruments. Horns playing, two horns playing in sixths. So we have the interval with 6 notes in between. And this is a very beautiful sound of horns. And we go back to part A. So part C is entirely brass instruments. First very powerful, and then horns playing beautiful melody. First trombone, then horn. And we come back to part A. And now in part A, it's a recapitulation of the etude. Another shock happens, and probably the biggest in the whole etude, and the biggest, one of the biggest in the whole Chopin's music. Of course, everything will start like at the beginning. We will have the same phrases, but the second phrase of this first theme immediately will change, open the door to another road to the climax. And now prepare yourself. In this etude, the biggest, grandest, largest climax is written in piano pianissimo and delicatissimo, which means very delicate. Piano. This is really a shock. We don't expect that at all. The music is growing. We expect it to explode, and suddenly it explodes, but it explodes in a very high register. Whispering. So this whisper is the greatest climax. This is a proof how a genius can write climax in piano pianissimo. Yes, I'm really enthusiastic about this, and I hope you too. So now let's listen how it sounds. Recapitulation. More! Yes, this is shocking. And then we have coda. The coda, which finally, another shock, because before Chopin didn't use it, is using the same material that Chopin used before. What is this material? Focus. Birds and then the answer, right? So Chopin is using these birds and the answer, and we have very light, beautiful music, and then another shock at the end. Of course, probably 99% of you know this etude, so you know the ending, but imagine that you don't. What a shock it is. We have the whole etude, which is very light, very funny, very ha-ha-ha, very, brilliant. Suddenly at the end, we have an avalanche of octaves, like Franz Liszt music. Very powerful, very spectacular. It doesn't fit to this etude. It's like, you know, at the very end, the etude finally has enough. It says like, I have enough of this light, women like playing. I want to show you I'm a man, and then just bang the piano with the octaves. Well, this is not a Chopin-like, but I think this etude, if we were to use one word to describe it, the word should be a shock. Because it's from the very beginning to the very end, constantly, all the time, we have surprises for our subconscious. All the etude is like that. Fantastic. Well, for me, it is. I mean, every etude of Chopin is fantastic. And when we do this analysis, we go deeper inside. We can discover it. We can look at it from the close-up, and we can really touch the genius. I love it. I love doing this, and I'm happy you are with me, and I'm happy you share my enthusiasm. Maybe sometimes thinking I'm a little crazy, but I think I am. I am crazy about music in general, but especially about Chopin music. And pieces like this, just makes me crazy even more. Anyway, now I will play for you the whole thing, trying to explain where we are while playing, maybe a little slower so that we don't have a mess. And let's experience this shocking beauty once more. The first part A, so it starts with the phrase that is loud and silence, and then ritenuto. Then the second phrase, which opens the door to birds, and the answer, birds, and then suddenly a long way to the climax. Then the trombones, then horns. Then coming back to part A. Big road to climax, which is in piano pianissimo, delicatissimo. And then the coda, based on birds, and suddenly at the end getting angry, getting manly, and ends with the avalanche of octaves at the very end. Part A. Ritenuto. Part B. Part C. Horns. Recapitulation, part A. We are building the climax. Coda. Thank you very much for having so much fun together with me, and see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, with another etude, we will have a completely different mood, another shock. Bye bye. See you. Thanks.